Blah, blah, blah. What do you do when writing is challenging, but you don't really have a good reason why? This is day 20 of our 100-day series on how to write a book. That means we are 20% of the way through. If you were writing every day along with these videos, then that would mean that you have written now for 20 days, 500 words. That is 10,000 words in your manuscript. Wow. Celebrate. Celebrate when you hit those big number milestones in your manuscript. And if you're not there, the answer is just simply to keep writing until you get there. All right, today we're going to talk about the 5th stage of the writing process, and that is the mundane middle. So if you're at this stage, you've already had an idea, you've already considered and contemplated what it would mean if you wrote a book about that idea. Maybe you've outlined it however your writing process works, as you've considered the cost of writing the book. Then you started. Yay! Starting high energy, low effort. Starting is fun. And then you hit the obstacles, which is the next stage of the writing process. If you've been writing for 20 days, you've already had some obstacles. So congratulate yourself on sticking with it, because you've already faced some sort of a temptation to not write at least one of those days. I'm guessing maybe a few more than one. That brings us to the 5th stage of the writing process, which is the mundane middle. Now, remember that matrix where I talked about your energy versus your effort of writing? This is when your energy starts to plummet. The new of the project has worn off, but the victory of getting to the finish line is far enough away that it doesn't seem very realistic. You're just kind of in that middle part. Sometimes in the mundane middle, you lose your way a bit. Maybe you know where you're going, you know how the book is going to end up, but you aren't yet sure how you're going to get there. And so because it gets a little messy and muddled at this stage, it makes the effort that it requires to write your draft increase, while the motivation is decreasing. It's not as rewarding at this stage of the process, but there's not really a good reason why. You're just in the middle of it. That's why I call it the mundane middle stage. It's when writing becomes maybe a little bit boring. You're showing up, you're doing your writing, you're making progress on your draft. Yay. But it just doesn't feel as exciting. You're not getting the results necessarily that you want. You recognize at this stage that the draft isn't fantastic. Maybe you're becoming more aware that it's going to take a lot of editing work to really make this a book. And the work that's piling up in the future seems to be bigger than the progress that you've made in the past. That's the mundane middle. It's not hard. The writing isn't hard. You're able to do it. It's not like you're facing obstacles that you can't get through in the writing process. It's just kind of blah. That's the mundane middle stage. For me, it helps to know that that's coming. I often will start to recognize when I'm in that, and I just say, oh, this is the mundane middle stage. That's where I am. That means that I have made progress because I'm already in the 5th stage of the writing process. So when you're there and when you're having trouble because it's boring and it's just hard to get motivated, just recognize how far you have already come. Recognize that you have already made it through 4 stages of the writing process and that this is completely to be expected. In fact, this is actually a good thing. The mundane middle stage is when things kind of level out. So while that enthusiasm at the start of the project is really exciting, while seeing the finish line is really exciting, most of us cannot sustain being that excited all the time. And so the mundane middle gives us the opportunity to relax into the project. So how do you get through the mundane middle? Well, the answer isn't very glamorous, just like this stage of writing. The answer is discipline. So all the work you have put into writing every day, all of the effort you have put into setting up your writing area so it's a place that welcomes you, all of the things you have put into place so that writing becomes a habit that more naturally happens, starts to pay off in the mundane middle stage. This is where all of that work really helps you to keep going because you just show up and write. That takes discipline. It's not hard most of the time, especially in short bits of 500 words. But sometimes it's not that exciting. That's the mundane middle. If you are depending on feeling like it to write, you are very unlikely to finish your draft. Writing isn't about feeling good and having that high energy, low effort to write a book. In fact, you can predict that some stages are going to be harder than other stages. You're not going to feel like it. So if you haven't cultivated that discipline of writing every day, it's going to be really hard to navigate making yourself feel like it. Some days of writing are amazing. You're absolutely going to feel like it. But in this stage of writing, chances are you're not. So welcome the mundane middle and know that the next stage is still coming.